What if France was competent in World War II? In our own timeline, after appeasing Hitler from 1938 to 1939, by letting them have Austria, the Sudetenland and Czechia, France would finally declare war on Germany on September 3, 1939 alongside the United Kingdom after Germany invaded Poland 2 days prior. However, bearing a small offensive in the Saar, France didn't really do anything, and thus Poland and later Denmark and Norway would fall. France decided to stay behind the Maginot Line, but just like in World War I, Germany went around through Belgium and encircled the Allies in Dunkirk. France would surrender soon thereafter, and be turned into a puppet state under Philippe Pétain before that too was dissolved in 1943. In 1944 the Allies did liberate France, and it got to occupy the Saarland, Rhineland-Palatinate, Baden and Württemberg-Hohenzollern. But the shame lived on, mainly on internet forums like r/history memes. But what if that didn't happen? What if France was competent in World War II? In this timeline, when Germany invaded Poland, France didn't just sit at the Maginot Line, but instead launched an all-out invasion. They quickly pushed the Germans to the Rhine River. Germany had to divert a lot of forces from the east to the west to halt the French, which causes Poland to hold the line. The Soviet Union decides to wait as Germany is clearly struggling. The German lines were however weak on the Bergische Land or Berg country, as it is hilly and forested, but it would be there where the French launched an all-out attack. They thrust through until they reached the Dutch border, west of Munster, encircling a huge portion of the German army. Germany is at this point unable to hold the line, and both the Western Allies and Poland would push back the Germans until Berlin falls, ending the war. After the conclusion of the war, Germany would be dismantled. Poland annexes Upper Silesia and East Prussia. France annexes the Saarland and establishes a puppet regime in the Rhineland, while the United Kingdom establishes one in Hanover under Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester, as Henry I of Hanover. Czechoslovakia would also get re-established out of Slovakia, Bohemia and Moravia, and the Sudetenland. But it would fail to get back southern Slovakia and Carpathia, as it is part of Hungary. Lastly, the Danubian Federation would be created out of Austria, Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden. The rest would be turned into the Federal Republic of Germany, and the Treaty of Versailles is upheld, so the German military has to be limited, but even more than before, to just 50,000 men. Reparations are reintroduced. The areas west of the Elbe are demilitarized and occupied by the West. Germany is no longer a threat, and France would establish itself as the hegemon on the continent. France would then sponsor the Maquis, who launch a coup against Francisco Franco. This would begin a second civil war between the Francoists under Luis Carrero Blanco and the Maquists under Diego Martinez Barrio. It would ultimately end with a victory for the Maquis, as this time they get Western support, while the nationalists didn't get any. Germany is no longer run by Nazis, and Italy isn't able to fund the nationalists again. The Third Spanish Republic would align itself with France, which just further expands its grip over Europe, that stretches from Spain to Poland. In this timeline, Japan wouldn't take French Indochina, and thus the West wouldn't sanction Japan, and it would manage to conquer China by 1945. Japan would annex some coastal cities like Shanghai and turn the rest of China into a puppet state under Chen Gongbo. Since there is no war in Europe, Japan can't invade European colonies in Southeast Asia, and thus would instead eye up the Soviet Union. Japan actually buddies up with the West, as they know they can't take down the USSR on their own and need a second front in the West, and since Poland hates Moscow with every fiber of its existence, and was friendly to Japan, this diplomatic mission is largely a success. In the spring of 1948, the Western Allies on one side and Japan on the other would invade the Soviet Union. Turkey, Finland, and Romania would also join the crusade against communism, and under pressure, so did the Baltic states. The Western Allies made great gains in Ukraine and Belarus, while Turkey was able to threaten the Baku oil fields, while Finland pushed into Karelia and threatened Leningrad. In the east, Japan conquered Outer Manchuria, Kamchatka, Magadan, and pushed into Mongolia and Buryatia. The Battle of Moscow would happen in summer, and it would end with France once more taking Moscow. Until winter, Turkey pushed the Soviets out of the Caucasus, Finland took Karelia and Kola. France encircled the northern Caucasus and pushed the Soviets to the Volga River, and Japan the Soviets to the Lena River and took most of Xinjiang. During winter, the northern Caucasus would fall. In 1949, the Soviet structure completely collapses and the Allies divide up the Soviet Union. Japan would establish the Far Eastern Republic under Konstantin Radzievsky, the Kingdom of Siberia under Vladimir III and Gregory Semyonov, and the Ottoman Sultanate under Abdülmecid II, Alash Orda under Abdüskambatov, and Republic of Turkestan under Korsurmat as vassal states. Mengjiang would get Mongolia, Tana Tuva, and Buryatia. Finland would annex Karelia and Kola, and Turkey would annex Batumi, Meshkedi, and Nakhchivan, and establishes friendly regimes in Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. France reestablishes the mountainous Republic of the Northern Caucasus, the Don Republic and Russian Republic, and takes Crimea, with Poland establishing puppet regimes in Ukraine and Belarus. Romania annexes Transnistria. Poland would also expand its sphere into the Baltics and Hungary. During the war, Italy invaded Greece, but would spectacularly fail. Greece would annex northern Epirus and the Dodecanes and establishes a friendly regime in Albania. This would lead to an Italian civil war between fascists and anti-fascists, in which the anti-fascists come out on top. Democracy would be re-established, and the monarchy would be via referendum abolished. During the Civil War, Yugoslavia would take Zara and Istria, Danubia would take South Tyrol, the United Kingdom takes Somalia, and Ethiopia and Libya declare independence. Italy would ultimately move towards Paris. Following the anti-Soviet crusade, a Cold War would emerge between France and Japan. In 1949, the United States would test the first nuke, that would be later replicated by both France and Japan, but also the United Kingdom. In the United States in 1952, Robert A. Taft would defeat Adlai Stevenson II, and then again in 1956. Nelson Rockefeller would lose in 1960 to John F. Kennedy, but would defeat Hubert Humphrey in 1968. While politics in the United States are similar to our own timeline, the Republican Party would be more moderate. In 1968, a revolution would erupt in China, and through a lot of Western support, the Chinese managed to regain their independence and drive the Japanese out. Revolution also struck in the rest of the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, and the Republic of Siberia, Republic of Turkestan, and the Republic of Mongolia gained their independence. Japan is only left with its mainland Sakhalin, Kuril Islands, Korea-Ryukyu Islands, and Taiwan. France would emerge as the greatest power in the Old World, but their power too would start to dwindle. Beginning in the 70s, colonies in the Middle East and India gained independence, and an independence war struck in Indochina. Until the 90s, as good as all colonies would gain independence, and France and the United Kingdom would also have to give independence to their puppets in Germany and Russia. France would, however, remain the greatest power in the Old World. The Suez Crisis would prove this, as they and the United Kingdom retained the Suez Canal. In 2001, Islamic terrorists would launch a terrorist attack in Paris, hitting the Eiffel Tower, leading to a French intervention in the Middle East. In 2002, the European Union would introduce the euro, which is 1-to-1 to the franc. In 2004, without any successes in Iraq, John Kerry defeats George W. Bush, only to then get defeated in 2008 by John McCain due to the Depression. He would then also defeat Barack Obama in 2012. In 2016, Bernie Sanders would defeat John Kasich, and then win again in 2020 against Ted Cruz. It would be in the late 2000s and 2010s, following the Great Recession, when Poland would challenge the French hegemony over Europe and China would challenge its hegemony over the Old World, beginning a second Cold War. In 2022, Poland and its Intermarim alliance would begin a special military operation in Russia. They did fail to take Moscow, and the war would mainly focus on the south, all while France funds Russia. In this timeline, the Second World War would end just a few weeks or months after I begun, and France would come out as the dominant power in the Old World, while Germany would be balkanized, like before 1871. France would, however, have to defend its title of master of the Old World in the following decades, as both Poland and China challenge its authority. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.